Sometimes some of the best moments are like feeling when you've defied death. So you're doing something crazy, or maybe a crash happens but somehow you get through, or it's like you take this turn but like you take it real hot and you're just on the edge, or you're sliding around but you save it. All those, or you shoot the gap, there's not quite enough room but then you make it through. All these things are like thrilling and a bit wild, but like out the other side of it you just feel like invincible. And like I love that thrill and that chaos and managing just like the unexpected and having to make choices and stuff.
Shout out to our partners at HVMN and Ketone IQ. I am a big fan of Ketone IQ and exogenous ketones for racing, training, and everyday health. They give you extra energy, extra focus, and metabolic flexibility. But what exactly are ketones, you ask? Ketones are a fourth macronutrient, like carbs, protein, and fat. They also are fuel for your brain and clean energy without sugar or caffeine. I use one shot of Ketone IQ 30 minutes before I head out into a workout or training session. Another one 60 minutes later, and so on. I also sometimes take this just to focus during my workday. And for all my athlete viewers, there's no need to ditch your carbs. You can add exogenous ketones and Ketone IQ to your existing nutrition and fueling plan. Totally different kind of energy. HVMN and Ketone IQ are used by Olympic athletes like Des Linden, world champion triathlete Sam Laidlow, and top world tour cycling team, Team Visma Lisa Bike. If you're ready to get on board and level up your nutrition and fueling plan, I've got a code for you. hvmn.com/MARNI for 30% off your first subscription order. Link in the show notes. Alison, it's so awesome to meet you today and to connect about all things cycling.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll probably take a duck and a dive somewhere off the cycling topic, but great.
So you are like hot off the heels of Paris-Roubaix. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just like right after. There was a lot of emotions and things from that week and from going into the race again with a lot of confidence, but trying to really use all that extra fan power, and the extra that comes from wearing number one and all that. But then, just really having a, disappointing ride, crashing a couple of times and then, not being able to make it into the final. So it's really interesting, just that roller coaster of emotions after, or just being like on one hand, being really grateful of like the year that I did get to win, and that, that year is my year. I get to be the queen of the cobbles for that piece of history, and how, I mean, it was such a big deal for Canadian cyclists.
I mean, you won Paris-Roubaix in 2023. No one from North America has won that race in 120 years. That's huge.
Right. Yeah. No male or female North American has ever won that race, or any, like to win a cycling monument like that. No Canadian male or female has won any of the cycling monuments. So I just really like that I'm the first, and I hope that tips the scale of the momentum, that there's going to be more coming after. But I mean, still, like, I come into the race and I want to win. I love, and not having I always said if I had a clean run, I could win the race. And the only year that I had no crashing or mechanicals, I won the race. So anyway, just feeling, a little bit of that disappointment, for sure. And then, but a lot of gratefulness, and we move on to the next thing. So right now we're prepping for the Vuelta. So get to do that 7-day tour. We call it a grand tour, but in my mind, I don't think you can call a 7-day race a grand tour. I think Yeah, that it goes by the namesake of a Grand Tour, but really a Grand Tour. What's crazy about that is like the 3 week race. But
Right.
anyway, we've got a lot
So
of
that would be the Tour de France. Yeah.
the on the men's side, the Tour
Yeah.
de France, the Vuelta, the Giro. Yeah, those three
So they're
races,
not
those
three.
are.
I'm an avid cyclist. I love cycling. And, you know, I have to say, watching from the television and seeing like the crashes and seeing the wins and seeing all that, it's like, it's crazy. Or riding, like, what's that like for you? I mean, not the crashing part, but like just like being in that energy zone, like trying to get a clean ride, get a straight ride, and like knowing these are things that happen as part of the course. Like, how do you avoid it?
Well, I mean, I love a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of the best moments are like feeling when you've defied death. So you're doing something crazy, or maybe a crash happens, but somehow you get through, or it's like you take this turn, but like you take it real hot and you're just on the edge, or you're
Yeah.
sliding around, but you save it. All those, or you shoot the gap. There's not quite enough room, but then you make it through. All these things are like thrilling and a bit wild, but like out the other side of it, you just feel like invincible. And like I love that thrill and that chaos and managing just like the unexpected and having to make choices and stuff. So, I mean, if you go, yeah, crashing is a part of the sport. You always hope that it's not you and that your skills and spidey senses keep you from getting in amongst a crash. But yeah, if you always go into something fearful that the what if, what if I crash or what if it goes bad, then I think you're never really gonna fully embrace the ride or the race or really be able to give 110% to what you're doing, to the task at hand. And I prefer to think, instead of, oh no, like what if I crash, or like what if this doesn't work, to think like, well, what if I make it through, or like, well, what if I can, or what if I win? So that, there's always going to be two sides of the coin, and
Yeah.
it just depends on which one you buy into or subscribe to.
And you also have this awesome new documentary that you did with Cannondale that I watched that was so, so cool. So you must really love Paris-Roubaix because you went back and did it for fun.
Well, we did the
Well, parts of
AJ's
it. Yeah.
version of
Yeah.
Paris-Roubaix, which actually is way harder than just what we do. Because I think it was about like 450 kilometers. But the thing is, as a North American, like our culture, and as a Canadian, we're not so steeped in cycling and cycling history. I didn't grow up watching bike races. I didn't grow up watching Paris-Roubaix and dreaming that, like, oh, I want to be that, or I wish there was a women's Paris-Roubaix that I could be in. But just like later through life, getting involved in the sport, and then when we first got as a women's, like there's a lot of teams and riders that kept pushing for a women's Paris-Roubaix,
Right.
for a women's Paris-Roubaix. And in my opinion, like coming from like a track and field background and triathlon background, every event that's for males is also for females at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was so strange to come into a sport that was so archaic, and that it was so male dominant, and just really no attention or anything put on the women's side. And so yeah, for sure there should be a women's Paris-Roubaix. And there's something about Paris-Roubaix, it's the only race of its kind. It's the only one that has all these super rough cobbles, that in France the cobbles are more gapped, they're rougher, they're longer, they're um they've got potholes and everything that's in them, but there's so much history from, like, you know all world history of wars coming through, and there's still them doing this race. Anyway, when the race, we were trying to push really for a women's Paris-Roubaix, and I remember I made this video about, because it was also during COVID. So then
Right.
we were going to have the first Paris-Roubaix femmes. but then it got canceled. But then it was coming back again. It was going to be put on in the, in the winter, and then it got canceled. And then it was going to be back on again, or like a talk of it happening, and it gets canceled. And so I remember I had made this video because I was really invested in the storyline of women's sport, and just like this race, it's really hard, and the type of person that wins has to be resilient and has to be a bit of a knucklehead, but also someone who's like bold and never quits, perseveres through the toughest conditions, keeps going, and those are the characteristics that I would love to be associated with. So I think that's where the love of the race started. But when you win, then I really felt like I had this responsibility to get to know the history of the race that I'm married into now as a champion. And to, the race originally started in Paris, went from Paris to Roubaix. The course was totally different, and it was long and it was rough. And then, the start city changed a couple of times, and the route changed because now they kept trying to find more of these cobbled streets, and some of the cobbled streets are disappearing. And so I think just like learning about it, but also, I mean, I have a spirit for adventure. So to see something new, and I mean, the Paris Olympics are coming up, and to actually go into Paris and get a sense also of the city and the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe, and how the movement works in Paris. All the croissants and pain au chocolat, really a cultural experience.
Yeah, I mean, they've got something on donuts. I mean, I feel like their cyclists get pain au chocolat on their long rides as opposed to donuts like they do here.
Yep. No, it's good. So then, I mean, then it was just we had, with Cannondale, we had thought we wanted to do this ride anyway. Before actually I had even won, we were going to do this ride, and I was just going to pick all these small roads that I really wanted to ride down. But the story just got so much richer after I'd won Paris-Roubaix, and one part of the trip was really getting to know the communities that hold up the race, and the fans that are so invested in this event. And I also really wanted to ride all the cobbles of the men's race. They have about 50K worth of cobbles. In the women's race, we have about 30K. So I was just,
What do you love about the cobbles? Like, how do you ride on them? I had to ride my bike through Soho recently, like over a cobblestone street, and I was like, I don't know how these women ride on the cobbles.
You just do it. You just keep pedaling.
Do you come out of the seat at all? Like, are you like doing anything? Do you have a different bike when you go over the cobbles? Like, do you switch out your bikes or anything like that?
We do a lot of equipment testing for this particular race, more than any other race. The bikes are the most important, and what we can do to manipulate them for tire pressure to get a comfortable ride, but also like the cobbles, the traction on the cobbles is also rough too. So you're trying to just get the best of all worlds. But so we just run wide tires, low pressure, to try to smooth out the cobbles as much as possible. But otherwise, when you're on it, you're just being shook around all the time. You get bucked off your seat. The bike moves all around. It has a mind of its own, and you gotta allow the bike to do what it's gonna do, and just sort of manage the bumps and bruises and blisters along the way.
So where else? So in your documentary, New Roads Uncovered, from the plains to the Pavé, which I just wanted to say the name. Where else are you traveling on your bike? And where tell me a little bit about it more. I know you were just sort of talking about it, but just in case any of my listeners want to watch it, check it out. Yeah,
the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, so you can yeah, check in to view it at any time. It shows you the route a little bit from, well, town to town, from boulangerie to boulangerie,
Yeah.
from Paris all the way to Roubaix, just up at the border by Belgium.
So how did you get into cycling? Like, when did that all start for you?
Yeah, I mean, part of the name of the film, From the Plains to the Pavé, really is about my story. I came from a little farm town in Vermilion, Alberta, Canada. Not many cyclists there. There's not many people there either. There's definitely more farm animals than there are people. And yeah, I just grew up with the work ethic of a farmer, which is, you work hard and you invest. It's an investment, farming. You put a
Yeah.
lot of work in, but you don't see the harvest till much later. And there's a lot of parallels to that in sport. You're going to put a lot of work in all of the training and hope, for a great harvest when it comes race time. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have bikes growing up. I got my first bike when I was 19, and it was because someone came to work at my parents' farm, brought a bike, and then left it there when they went back home. So then I decided I would ride it into town. And then at that time, I was swimming and running for totally different reasons. I was swimming because I wanted to learn how to surf, and I was running because I did this 3-week prayer hike in the Himalayan mountains.
Nice.
So just, yeah, running, swimming, biking. Someone said, "Oh, are you training for a triathlon?" I said, "What is that?" Then I joined them for a couple training rides, went to a race, qualified for amateur worlds, and I thought, hey, I must be a little bit talented in this. Let's see where it goes. And from that, got a running and swim scholarship at a university out in BC. And then, yeah, swam with the university, ran with the university, cycled with the cycling club. The guys at the cycling club said, "Hey, you should race." I thought, why not? Got in some races and won. And yeah, then the short bit of the story is I signed a contract. I was given an opportunity to win, and I did. Was given more opportunities to win, and I did, and went straight over to Europe to try to make it there, because you can be a big fish in the little pond,
Right.
or you can jump in the deep end and be the small little fish in the big pond. But if you want to be the best, you have to race against the best. And
Yeah.
that's why I went over to Europe straight away.
So did you fall in love with cycling immediately and just drop the other sports and really focus on that?
Well, actually, I love everything.
Yeah.
I If someone said, "Hey, you have the technique and the build to be an Olympic champion in swimming," I'd be like, "Great, sign me up. I'll just do all that." Or to me, it almost doesn't matter the sport. I just love what the body can do when you put it under pressure. It changes and it adapts and it grows, and I think it's amazing, the human body. The thing about cycling, though, more as I got into it, I mean, basically the opportunity was there for me to go
Mhm.
and become a professional athlete, and I was like, hell yeah. Then really what I love so much about it is the tactics, the game. And that's something that you don't really get in running, you don't get in swimming. Um, you know, cycling, it's not always the strongest that wins. It's the one
Right.
who is smart, or who's bold, who uses the energy at the right time, and plays the game well. And I love that. And it makes racing so dynamic that you can go to the same event year after year, but the players will make the race so different and make the outcome different. And that's what I love about bike racing and coming back again and again.
And also there's like this element of exploring, right? That's just like you get to see the world on your bike. I don't know. That's what I love about it. But I'm only in
Yep.
New York. So I get to see the GW Bridge and 9W. But yeah, no, I mean, I think also like with cycling, I mean, it feels like there's so much strategy, like Did you ever end up surfing? Did you dial into that sport at all, or?
Yeah, I actually needed to become a professional cyclist in order to get my first surf lesson because we had went to Tour Down Under, TDU, which is in Australia, and the organization actually offered we could go take a surf lesson. So that was actually when I had my first surf lesson. And then always every year when we went back to Australia for that race, I always would have a day or two of surfing. We had our world championships in, I guess 2 years ago, 2022, in Wollongong, Australia. Mm-hmm. And I stayed after for another week and put myself through surf school. So I had 6 days of surfing. So yep. And when I take my mid-season break this year, that's the same day I'm going back to surf school. So yeah.
That's amazing. What do you love about surfing?
Honestly, I love everything. So any activities but the thing about surfing, you just get to be outside in the water. It's a challenge. I love a challenge. I love the feeling of success that you get when you do something hard, and you accomplish it. The salt water does great things for my curly hair, so that's a bonus.
Amazing. My hair would be curly if I went in the ocean. You're over there advocating for women to get more road time and also having more women in sport, especially in the sport of cycling, which I agree it is incredible that up until Zwift really got on board and sort of spearheaded sponsoring the Tour de France and creating the Tour de France Femme, there really wasn't that much out there that was widely broadcast that people knew about, that women could compete in, that men were doing in the world of cycling.
Yeah, I think the more that you're really into cycling, in a way it is a niche sport and it's very Eurocentric, but there's a lot. Belgium does a great job. Every big race, and it's big monument races, big spring races, are all held in Belgium, and they will always have a women's race, and they do a great job hosting it. They just love bike racing. And you love bike racing. You can watch men or women do it. You just want to see how it plays out, and that it's a tough sport. The Tour de France, I think, probably where you're coming from. When I became a professional cyclist, and I'm telling, people, Canadians, that's what I do. They'll either ask the Tour de France or do you do the Olympics? And those are kind of our two big reference points for cycling. But really, as a cyclist in cycling, there's so many events that mean so much, that are so hard to win. So Paris-Roubaix, one of them, is probably, the fans' favorite race to watch. But yeah, it's great now to be able to say to all the Canadians. Well, now actually most Canadians know Paris-Roubaix, but to say, I also have raced in the Tour de France Femmes, and I've, competed at the Olympics, and those are kind of, just funny little things that help you feel or affirm, your career choice or your ability. But
what are the other races that you really love to participate in? You mentioned La Vuelta is coming up, but I don't know if that's one that you love.
Yeah,
you love everything.
Exactly. Actually, to be honest, there's going to be races that suit me better as a rider to get a result or to have a chance to win. And I'll race anything. I love the things that are hard and that are not for me, but I love racing. Winning is a special type of fun. So if I can get in the races that I could do well in, do I love those more? Maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I really like the type of rider I am. I love 1-day races that are just hard smash fest. You got to read the race, read the tactic, and it's all out for that one race. But what I'm looking forward to about the Vuelta is, so I love riding new roads. Okay,
Yeah.
the Vuelta or tours, we know you start in one city and you'll race to another city, you'll drive to the next city, and you kind of do this through the whole country. And what's so cool about that is you go to these towns and these places that are hosting you the start or the finish, and you see something new and interesting, and we have no reason to be there except for this bike. The bike race brings us there, and it's so interesting to just discover new roads and places. And then also I love how it looks on my map, like my Strava Wanderer Earth
I
map.
have to follow you on Strava now.
It just like follow like yeah. So I love riding new roads and new places. Um, I mean the and that's the same with the Tour de France or the Giro.
Yeah.
It's fun now, racing the Giro in Italy. You get to eat the best food all week, the
Yeah.
best pasta. Every hotel, big or small, just does great food.
That's amazing. I mean, I just want to go watch, spectate, and eat the food, and maybe ride like a couple of things by myself with like some other slow people. Like, that's kind of my dream vacation right now. Like on my vision board is like to come. I was supposed to be in Paris, and I was gonna come and watch the Paris Roubaix. I mean, I know it's not in Paris, but I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was gonna do it because I was supposed to do the Paris Marathon, but I didn't end up going. Whatever. But that's like I would love to spectate some of those races and travel and like maybe do like my own little ride in between, like a slow ride.
AJ's period, like my, you
Yeah.
can repeat the route that I did in the film.
Oh yeah.
You'll
Okay.
be fine.
That would be cool, as we know. But in terms of like places you've been on your bike, do you have any spots that are just your all-time favorite that you like to ride? Not race, just ride.
Yeah, well, my home away from home in Girona, there's a route that I have that I made it. It goes from kind of a little small road, and it laps around into the volcanic park by Olot, which is the city. But I, yeah, this route, it's beautiful. There's just some beautiful cliffs and cities on the cliffs and the little small roads and horses, and I love that ride. I really do love um, riding in BC. So um, my Canadian home, chosen home, is kind of in the outside of Vancouver area, in the country that we call it, but the mountains there, the big Rocky Mountains, or it's the Cascade Mountains, I guess. Beautiful. There's tons of great roads and riding, and the community is great. So, I mean, I love going back there and getting to ride my home roads.
What's your mindset around approaching race day and just all the things that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a really good balance between being real serious and being real fun.
Yeah.
It's really important for me just to love life and say yes to things and experience the people and the places and have a laugh. All of that is really important. I think when you have a happy heart, you're gonna have happy legs and a great performance. But when it comes down to race day, or prepping for the race, I'm real serious, real focused on that. But can really easily dip out of that into just frivolity, if you will, like silliness for silliness sake. Yeah, I think in that way, um, I know like fans find me really approachable, because I can take the time to share a laugh or have a little conversation, and I love that. I love doing that. It really energizes me, meeting people and sharing stories.
And you also have, like I started out talking about how fun your Instagram is. Like, you have a talent for creating content and you're also very funny. And I noticed you also a dancer. Like, where did that come from? Like, were you like literally really into dance at one point, or you just love dancing? or both?
I love moving my body.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was a gymnast, and I took ballet and jazz class, but I've always loved dance, and even now, I'll take dance classes here and there. Or have my own dance party or whatever. But yeah, I think it was also just something that I guess I was good at, but I love so much. I also just love like the storytelling that comes with it, and also it's another thing, like a challenge of what your body can do. But I mean, it's so
Right.
fun to do, to feel the music in your body, and also just for me as a self-expression of joy or whatever. Yeah, it comes through in some of the dance,
That's the
the
other thing you're
wacky,
into.
wavy, inflatable arm flailing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like on your Instagram. That's the other thing you're into, right? Is music. Like you'll have a song for each leg of a race day or something that's just like in your head. It's like your theme song. You're like, did you
Yeah,
stalk me on
maybe,
Instagram?
or actually a lot of times, like on bike rides, on my long rides, 5-6 hours, I might take my earbuds, but a lot of times I don't even listen to music. I might have one line of a song that's just like replayed over and over in my head, or a thought, or think up a story, or imagine something. Um, but yeah, I ever since COVID, actually, something that I really started uh doing or loving to do was listening to albums, but from the first song to the last, which
Mhm.
is kind of like an old school way to listen to music when you get the record or you get the CD and that's
Right.
all you have. Now we have all these playlists and things where artists are putting out singles instead of, really listening to the album full through. But there's a lot of artistry in music, and an artist putting the songs in that particular order.
Right.
There's a storyline there, and yeah, I love engaging that way.
Like I grew up that way too. Like you listen to an album from the first song to the last song, and there's a reason why the third song is where it is, whether the
Yeah.
artist decides it's going to be their hit or it's part of the bigger story. But you're on Team EF Education and you're
Team EF Education-Cannondale.
Cannondale. I was just going to say, and you're on a Cannondale. Which Cannondale do you ride? Which bike is the team on?
Well, we
Race.
we read yeah the Super Evo 6
Okay.
Lab 71. I mean, basically, like what their top line race bike. That's that's made for, yeah, exactly us.
Or have you tried any of their other bikes?
Yeah, so I have a one of the, yeah, gravel bike from Cannondale. I'm trying to remember what the model is, but basically, yeah. So I have a gravel bike from Cannondale that I'll ride, here and there, just for fun.
Is there something about like the Cannondale community and culture of having them as a partner on your team that you really feel is a huge benefit?
Well, Cannondale has been a huge supporter of women's sport. I mean, they've always sponsored a women's team. That's been a huge part of what they do, sponsoring like both male and female athletes. But they also they do a great job of storytelling. They have bikes for super race bike freaks, triathletes, but also like a lot of for on par for community level people
Yeah.
or commuters, or they have some great cargo bikes too that moms and grandmas and grandpas can ride to pick up their flowers or kids or groceries. They've got a whole line of e-bikes that, mountain bikes and road bikes. Really, like, there's a bike for every person out there.
Yeah.
But Cannondale just, it doesn't matter if you're a super elite bike racer like me, or someone who just wants to go out on the gravel path by their home for 20 minutes. The great thing about bikes is being able to is that independence that you have, that you can move a machine to take you somewhere. You can explore something new. It's a a great option for commuting, health. It's good for your mental health. And Cannondale just also does a great job of storytelling and connecting with communities and people, and sharing stories not just of elite bike racers, but of also how members of the community use bikes. So
yeah, and they were obviously the film that you did is with Cannondale, so that's a good reflection of like what they do with their athletes as well. What's your training like right now, like leading into the Vuelta?
Yeah, the Vuelta. Yep. Well, it's a 7-day stage race, and there's quite a bit of climbing. We've got a team time trial, so that's all the team. Point A to B, trying to be the fastest team to get across the line or to do that distance. And we'll ride the TT bikes, the Super Slice. So do some team training on the time trial bike. And then, trying to prepare for kind of what the demands of the course are. So putting in those hill climbing reps, getting a sprint ready for when the race is going to finish in a bunch kind of sprint. And then a few days before the race, we take it a little easy, recover, eat a lot of pasta, and then hit it.
I was going to say, what's your nutrition like when you're riding? Like, are you eating a ton of carbs? Are you guys using ketones? Like, what can you talk about? Or partners?
Yeah, no, it's all carbs. And we're, hard trainings, we're trying to do 90 to 100 grams of carbs. And for me, I always use the Team Sport Nutrition Partner Amex, because it's really pure carbs. Other times or off season, I'll use a lot of like cakes and cookies because it's fun.
Yeah.
But really, when you want to get the nutrition right, the body uses carbohydrates. So you got to get all that you can in, and try to mimic maybe some of what your gut's going to have to handle when you're in the bike race too.
Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.